Good morning, pioneers. Today is Tuesday, May the 26th, and last week you guys had to complete a Causes of the Civil War chart. The Causes of the Civil War chart dealt with some of the different compromises and events that led up to the Civil War. The common denominator in all of them was the institution of slavery. You guys had to complete that chart and then the green puzzle piece that went along with it. So if you did not do so, please submit that to me ASAP. To this week, guys, we're going to touch on real quick the geography of the Civil War, the Union versus the Confederacy, and then we're going to get into the actual first battle of the Civil War, that being Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. First of all, the Union, or the North, are represented by these blue states. Okay, the Confederacy, or the states shaded in gray, are represented by represent the Confederacy. The red states, Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, Delaware, these are known as border states, which meant by that they had slaves, but they did not officially break from the Union. Okay, there will be a couple of questions about the geography of the United States during the Civil War moving forward. So where does the war start? The war starts in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, at Fort Sumter. Now, the background of this, real quick, guys, is that South Carolina and several other states had already broken from the Union at the time of Fort Sumter, and they wanted the forts, the military equipment, if you will, that now they felt belonged to them, since they considered themselves to be their own country. So they were going to confiscate or take the former property of the United States, Fort Sumter being one of them. Fort Sumter, as I mentioned, is located in Charleston Harbor here. See it right there with the cursor. And it was right in the middle of the harbor, and it was a target for forts, batteries that were set up along the coastline for the Confederates. And this is the start of the war. Two generals involved. We have the Union General Robert Anderson on the left. He is inside Fort Sumter protecting the fort. And we have PGT Beauregard, the Confederate general, who was about to open fire on Fort Sumter. A little known fact, Beauregard was Anderson's former student at West Point Military Academy. The two knew each other well. You're going to read primary source letters between the two moments before the war begins. Who fired the first shot of the Civil War? It is believed to be this man here, Edmund Ruffin. He said it would be an honor to pull the first gun of the war. And there is an image of Mr. Ruffin. Well, the war begins at 4:30 a.m. on April 12th, 1861, with the Confederacy open fire on Fort Sumter. Couple of things. The bombardment goes on for 34 consecutive hours. The Union will eventually be forced to evacuate the fort and turn it over to the Confederacy. Major Anderson was allowed to salute the flag before leaving. He was allowed to not only salute the flag, but they had a 50-gun salute. The flag staff with the American flag on it was hit 8 times during the bombardment, in which 3,000 shots were fired at the fort. Ironically enough, guys, there was no human casualties during the actual fighting of Fort Sumter. One man was killed in an accidental explosion during that 50-gun salute I mentioned earlier, but no one actually during the battle. The only living thing to lose its life that day was a Confederate horse. This is a look at inside Fort Sumter as the Confederate flag flies. Major Anderson did take the Union flag with him when he left the fort. As I mentioned, guys, the Confederate flag does fly above the fort on April 14th, 1861. And the reason I show you that date is because 4 years later, on April 14th, 1865, at the close of the Civil War, the United States holds a ceremony raising the American flag once again over Fort Sumter, where the war began. Robert Anderson actually did come out of retirement for that. What will we be doing this week? Well, let's just start with Tuesday and Wednesday. On Tuesday and Wednesday, guys, I have a little video here for you on Fort Sumter. This video does a nice detailed explanation of the battle. I downloaded the PDF again for the textbook. And also there's some primary source letters on Beauregard and Anderson. Kind of interesting. Moments before they're about to open fire on one another, they are cordially writing to one another. And then here is the green puzzle piece that you should complete on Fort Sumter. Okay, and submit that to me upon completion. Next couple of days, we'll get into the presidential responses and both countries readying for war.